Joseph Constant was a Franco-Russian sculptor and writer of Jewish origin. As a sculptor, he adopted the name Joseph Constant. As a writer, he used the pseudonym Michel Matveev. Biography. Constant was born in Jaffa in 1892 to Russian Jewish parents. He spent his early years in Odessa. When still quite young, he took part alongside his father in the anti-Tsarist revolutionary activities of 1905. In 1914, he entered the Academy of Fine Arts in Odessa, and during the Communist Revolution of 1917 he was named an Inspector of Fine Arts. In 1919, his father and his brother were killed in an anti-Jewish pogrom. That same year, Constant and his wife decided to quit Russia. They traveled to Palestine aboard the ship Ruslin, which carried a number of other Jewish artists. In Tel Aviv, they formed an artists' cooperative that included the painter Yitzhak Frenkel. A year later, the ailing Constant traveled to Egypt. He arrived in Paris in 1923 after further travels in Turkey and Romania. In Paris, Constant frequented the district of Montparnasse, a favorite milieu of Russian Jewish artists. This served as the inspiration for his later novel Les Cités des Peintres. Adopting the pseudonym of Michel Matveev, Constant was a later rival to the literary scene. In his own words, it happened un peu par hasard pour gagner quelque argent. It was not until he arrived in France that he began to write, and he did so directly in French. His first book, on the subject of the 1905 revolution, was published in 1928. In the 1930s, he gradually abandoned the medium of painting, focusing instead on sculpture. He also continued his activity as a writer and translator. In 1933, he published Les Traqueurs, a tragic story of Jews traveling across Europe in search of a safe haven. This was translated into English by Desmond Flower under the title Weep Not for the Dead. In 1936, he won the Prix des Magats for his collection of short stories Étrange Famille. After the Second World War, he gained greater renown as a sculptor both in France and abroad. For the 1950s onwards, he traveled frequently to Israel, staying at the kibbutz of Ein Harod. In 1962, the mayor of Ramat Gan invited him to take up residence in the artists' quarter in the heart of the city. From then on, Constant shared his time between his studio in Paris and that in Ramat Gan. The latter was converted into a museum upon his death. In 1959, he wrote his last novel Hélas autrefois, a semi-autobiographical work in which he evoked his childhood and youth in the Ukraine at the turn of the century. He died on the 3rd of October 1969 in Paris. Selected writings: 1933, Les Traqueurs, Editions Gallimard. 1936, Étrange Famille, Editions Gallimard, Prix des Magats. 1947, Les Cités des Peintres, Editions Atlas. 1959, Et les autrefois, Editions Gallimard.